Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Empowerment Hour on Platinum Sounds Radio 88.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown Providenciales. We're also broadcasting live in Great Inagua on SNL Radio 98.3 FM in Great Inagua. It's so good to be broadcasting in the Bahamas, and this is our second program that is being broadcast in the Bahamas, and so it's good. It's great to reach beyond Turks and Caicos on radio. Also, too, we're broadcasting on Facebook, and we encourage those of you watching on Facebook to share this program and even to leave a comment and to be a part of this conversation this evening. This is a call-in show. The number to call is 946-8058, 946-8058. We certainly solicit your call, and we have a great guest this evening. Our guest this evening is Honorable Maxovonno Thomas from South Caicos. So good to have you in studio this evening.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, and I'm your host, Bishop Alvin, Harvey. Bow your head at this time as we go before the Lord in prayer. Father, we thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to come into this studio this evening. We pray that even as we discuss this evening, that you would be here with us, guide our thoughts and our speech this evening, that your people may be informed. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
This evening we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of the opening of the economy, and maybe we'll touch on some other things, because we have a very informed young man in this house this evening, in this studio this evening. After the last election, I'm sure a number of people were pleased on the appointment of two young men to Parliament, Honorable Tamad Butterfield and our guest this evening, Honorable Maxovonno Thomas.
Yes, sir.
So it's good to have you here this evening.
Yes.
Can you just share a little bit more about yourself?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be on the show with you,
Yes.
Bishop Harvey, as well as also to speak to the wider audience, Turks and Caicos Islanders, as well as you say, we're broadcasting even in parts of the Bahamas.
Yes.
But it's a pleasure to be a part and be on a locally owned radio show.
Yes.
That's certainly a pleasure, and I think we're moving in the right direction, with stuff like that. But I am from South Caicos. I was educated. I graduated from the Madre Basin High School. Actually, I was valedictorian of my class.
Okay, great.
I ventured on to the community college, right? I went to the community college. I took 1 year at the community college, basically, just to get some, pre-warm-ups to college, before I venture abroad, because at that time, the policy in place was once you're valedictorian, you got a full ride scholarship.
Right.
So I benefited from, a government policy, that existed at that time.
Okay.
I studied accounting and at Johnson & Wales University, where I gained a Bachelor's of Science degree in accounting. Most of my concentrations, though, were in economics. So I have a vast knowledge when it comes to economics, how the economy works. Right. Also, I later on, I came back home after university. I worked in Colorado actually for a year.
Right.
I worked as an auditor in Colorado for a year, and I decided it was time for me to, return back home to serve my country,
Okay.
which had already, invested a lot of money in me at that point. So I returned home, and I'm going to give you a very good story, that probably could be encouraging to some young people out there, right?
Right.
I returned back home, the job market was pretty soft back in, 07-ish.
Right.
The job market, because we were going through some financial financial difficulties in the country.
Yes.
So I came back home. I put out several, resumes, to different organizations, and I had an interview at Meridian Trust. Right at that time, I remember the director as well as owner, who was Keith Perrin, put 30 questions on a piece of paper, and he said, no calculator. You need to give me your phone, everything like that.
Okay.
If you could get 80% of these questions right, you have 10 minutes to do it. You could get that right, you have a job.
Okay.
He took the piece of paper. Before 10 minutes up, I actually completed those questions and got all right. And, at that point he said, man, You're the first guy who ever walked in my office who got all of the questions right, so you have a job.
Wow.
He told me
Great.
you could start on Monday. You know, I had multiple people who were looking for an interview, but you got a job on Monday. So
Right.
I have been a banker at Meridian Trust for the last 9 years. For the last 9 years, I worked there in terms of trust, mortgage, insurance. So a vast amount of the business, you know, I understand the entire financial services sector as it relates to Turks and Caicos in terms of lending, insurance, and the other businesses that evolves around that sector. So, you know, that is my experience. I also, in 2012, at that time, the new leader of the PDM, which was Oswald Skippins, who was also a relative of mine, which is, you know, he's the first cousin of my grandmother. You know, he knew my skill set, and then we had a new ordinance at that time in terms of the political activity ordinance. And, you know, you needed an accountant to manage that whole entire process, because we're now moving in this phase where there's total transparency in terms of politics. Okay. So I have been the treasurer for the PDM since 2012 election. Okay. Yes. You know, dealing with everything in regards to the finances of the party. In 2016, as you would know, and the general public would know, that I am now the appointed member for the government, responsible for, you know, well, right now I sit currently in the backbench, but also, you know, I serve on a number of committees, right? The Appropriations Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, and those are key governing bodies that needs to be in place in terms of protecting government revenues and everything else, right? I also am a member of CDU, right, as well as CDU, which is the Caribbean Democratic Union, which pretty much is our sister party throughout the Caribbean, as well as in England, and as well as the UK, as well as in the US, the Republican Party, you know, is our sister party. So I have benefited from a ton of experience of being the appointed member in terms of being able to, you know, get experience through various bodies, as well as various government boards.
So, you know, a lot of times we talk about the politics of the politics, but we don't talk about the politician. How has that experience been for you personally, to have served in government for the past years?
Yeah, well, personally, it's been great for me. One, I have gained a lot of appreciation for the civil service in regards to sometimes how things work, right? In the private sector, coming from the private sector, you know, we have a board meeting, everybody voice their concerns, we make a decision, that decision is carried out, and is carried out immediately by persons that, you know, might find themselves in lower positions, right? In the public sector, sometimes it takes a bit of a process to get through. Now, I have gained a greater appreciation at the public sector, I can tell you, is in terms of, you know, personnel being in place. I have a lot of qualified personnel. Right? But there's the motions of the public sector sometimes tend to be a bit slower than the private sector. Right? So, and for me, that was a bit of an adjustment, but I think going forward, one of my ambitions and one of the things I want to see right in the public sectors and the private and the public sector is for us to be able to come together and try to match the private sector in regards to, you know, standards, deadlines, and everything else. Now, we have leaps and bounds over the last, call it 15 years in terms of products and services offered by the public sector, but I think that we still have a ways to go, and the key thing about it, that is what I think we ought to look towards.
I love when I hear people talking in relations to vision, having a vision, and even going forward. And obviously you've served for the past few years as an appointed member, and I'm going to come right out of the blocks with this. Do you have political ambitions going forward?
Yes, Bishop Harvey, I do have political ambitions going forward.
Yes.
I can tell you the truth. Perhaps, I don't know, it might be a month, it might be 2 months. Whenever the People's Democratic Movement open the candidates process, I will be vying for one of the at-large spots.
And you think you stand a good chance of getting it?
I truly believe, because of the experience I gained, my experience I gained in the private sector, and the direction that this country is heading in terms of the financial situation that we face, that my skill set and my talent is very unique at this time to move the Turks and Caicos forward.
Okay, so you think you're uniquely qualified?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Truly, the Turks and Caicos Islands and the world has been going through a difficult few months battling COVID-19. And COVID-19 is something that we could not have prepared for. It seemed to have come from nowhere. You know, it showed up in China, and then we just watched it, you know, going to the United States, and then it came to the Turks and Caicos Islands. Usually these pandemics or these diseases don't usually reach us, but COVID-19 seemed to be different. And we've already gone through the process of being locked down and the systematic opening of the economy. And now the borders are open since July 22nd. And that's what we're here to talk about this evening, primarily about the pros and cons of the opening of the economy. Now, a whole lot has happened since the economy has opened. We have reports of an individual coming in here who tested COVID-19 positive.
Correct.
Since that. What are the real risks? What are the real risks of opening the economy?
Well,
in your view?
In my view, there's several factors that we need to consider, right? Even before we had the first flight showed up here, we had a spike in COVID-19 cases. Right? So what that means to me, and perhaps means to the wider public, right, is that COVID-19 is already present in Turks and Caicos Islands. Right? Now, let's just take a look at this from a pure number standpoint, right? We have about 40 to 50,000 residents, right? The day we open the flights to the wider world, right, we allow about, I think it was about 405 passengers. Right? 405 passengers. And to be honest with you, we had 18 private jets, right? So that means there was, you know, considerable wealthy people that came inside the country, right? So if you look at 40,000 people who was already exposed to coronavirus, opposed to bringing in 400 people, right, who went through extreme, some of the tightest measures throughout the Caribbean, right? We require you to have medical insurance, right? We require you to come in a mask, as well as produce a negative COVID-19 test, right? And if you look at it, just for debatable sakes, right? Bishop, myself, as well as you, haven't taken a coronavirus test.
No.
We are sure that 99% of the persons, right, who entered this country took a coronavirus test. Now, the exception to the rule, right, the laws were in place that nobody should have been allowed to get on any flight to come to Turks and Caicos without producing a test, right? So obviously, right, there has been a breach in the standard. So it was never the interpretation, it was never the government's vision to have anyone into this country without those strict sort of measures, right? Now, the pros of, I think you talk in regards to opening up the economy. The pros is this country runs off of $22 million a month, right? For the last couple of months, we've been roughly around $4 to $5 million a month, right? So we've been running a deficit about 16 million. Right?
Okay.
So 16 million. So obviously, if you continuously run a deficit in that large amount, eventually the government reserves will be liquidated. Right? And under that system, the government reserves possibly will still be liquidated, and we will still have the threat of COVID-19.
Right.
Right? If persons was to follow the law to the T in terms of wearing your mask, right? And keeping the social distance like we are doing right now.
Right.
Right? And washing your hands, right? COVID-19 or that visitor who is visiting this country, right, will not impact us.
Right.
Right? And they are in a much better position than most other residents right now, because they have to produce within 5 days a coronavirus test that is negative.
Okay.
Right? So,
what if, what happens when someone is flagged? What is the process when someone is flagged for further review? Say they come in and there is something suspicious about them and they're flagged for further review. What is the process?
yeah. Well, if you're flagged for further review, you immediately put in quarantine. And because of the medical insurance that was provided, right? Government, because right now government has a program in place that allows you, if you don't have medical insurance, you're able to buy medical as well as travel insurance, which allows you, if you test positive on the arrival, if you were flagged and test positive, you're immediately quarantined and placed on, the next available flight that's leaving the country, right?
Okay. So the insurance that was put in place means that you anticipate really that there will be some people who might get through the cracks.
Well, not just get through the cracks, because if you take the test 5 days before you arrive here, within the 5 days, there's still a possibility, whether it's slim, whether it's 1% or 5% or even 60%. There's a chance between you being in transit to Turks and Caicos that you can actually attract or catch the coronavirus.
Right.
Right? So that is the reason for having the medical insurance in place, to ensure that if you contract the coronavirus en route to Turks and Caicos and you find yourself that you get ill and you're not an asymptomatic person and you start to show symptoms and you automatically take a test, you can immediately leave the Turks and Caicos Islands and not become a strain on our medical system.
Okay.
That's the reason for the coverage in terms of the insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yes.
All right. So you think that this is the right move for us at this time?
No, it's definitely the right move for us at this time. And I'm going to also say, I always caution, health comes first, right? Before economics. And we're living in like what the Premier likes to say, a very fluid situation, right? There's no win in the midst of a pandemic, right?
Right.
There's no win, right? Because at the end of the day, and I'm going to give an example so persons may understand, right? At the end of the day, if a relative of yours, God forsakes, right, gets sick, right, and the country is open, she decides to open the country, right? You may find it in your heart that you may become unforgiving because you're saying, you know what, the country opened prematurely.
Right.
Right? And then the other side of the equation is that we have Turks and Caicos Islanders and Turks and Caicos Islander businesses, right? Persons who have already depleted all of their savings, right? They physically are unable at this time to take care of their families, right? Who's willing to follow the protocol, willing to follow the standard, wear a mask, right? Wash their hands frequently, right? And the issue is that if they follow that, you will not contract, or there's a very low chance that you will contract the coronavirus. So at that point, persons start to look at, I still need to be able to take care of my basic needs,
right,
and support my family, right? And that is an equation that you have to balance, because at the end of the day, right, health takes priority, but economics is real. It's live and real. Financials, right?
It's real.
It's a real situation.
Yes, that's true now.
Yeah.
Yes, and these are definitely difficult times. And it's we're actually sailing in uncharted waters at this particular time. There are no maps really to get through what we're going through. And it seems as though things are changing every day.
Yeah, but certainly on that same note, right? We have faced difficult times in this country before.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if you can recall 9/11, right? It wasn't quite, it was global, but it was not as global as this, where there was September 11,
Yes, that's
the
true.
trade centers,
Yes.
where we faced a situation where persons was in fear of flying, right? Our business is tourism, and
Right.
the only way for you to get here, well, the majority of passengers, as it stands, or back then, was by flight,
Right.
right? So we went through a period similar to this before, right? And I think it was under the Honorable Derek Taylor,
Yes.
right, who was at the country management at that time, and we fared off very well. And I also tell people and persons in the public is that, you know, various situations, we have faced tough times in this country,
Right.
right? And I'm sure we will get to this question,
Right.
in regards to the stimulus,
Yes.
right? But I also, being honest and truthful with the public, right? We faced difficult situations before.
Right.
We had Hurricane Ike, right? What really showed up and, you know, devastated our economy, right? There was very to little government assistance at that time,
Okay.
right? So just putting everything in context before we get to another part
Okay.
of the conversation. You know, we have faced difficult times in this country before,
Yes.
right? And the response, right, has not, in my point of view, as we sit today,
Yes.
has not been as great as the response that we have gotten from this current premier,
Okay.
right? So that's my.
So you would say these are the best of times
No, it's not.
and the worst of times.
No, it's the best of times and the worst of times, right? And it's very important that you say that, because sometimes I always tell people, sometimes two
Right.
things can be true,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, you can say it's the worst of times, but the response, I think, in regards to that, right, we have, you know, certainly various things could have been better, and I think we would get to that, right, in regards to, you know, the conversation about the stimulus and everything else. But what I'm saying is, in terms of what we have faced in this country, well, this current administration,
Right.
you went through 2 hurricanes and a pandemic,
Right.
right? And certainly, and from my knowledge and doing my calculations on everything, if you compare 2012 to 2016 to 2016 to now, right? Even after a major pandemic and 2 storms, right? We have invested more in capital expenditure and projects in this country than the previous government, who haven't had to deal with 2 major hurricanes and a pandemic,
Okay.
right?
All right. So you would say that the test that you guys faced in the past years, that you passed it.
Certainly, certainly we have passed the test,
Okay.
right? Let me tell you why I say certainly. One,
Right.
even up to today, after we have been through a major pandemic, civil servants, which is 2,400 people, right? Somewhere in that, the civil services, right?
Yes.
They're receiving full pay,
Uh-huh.
right? When other Caribbean countries, right, are downsizing, right, reducing their numbers, we here in the Turks and Caicos are fully committed to paying our civil service and providing a stimulus,
Yes.
right? Now, I'm not saying everything has been great, right? And if we go through that process, I will tell you the current stimulus that has been given out by government, what is the difference between how I think it should have went and how it went.
Okay.
Good.
All right, we're going to get to that. We're talking to Honorable Maxovonno Thomas. We're broadcasting live on Platinum Sounds 88.5, SNL Radio 98.3 in Great Inagua, Bahamas. And I saw someone commenting on Facebook saying that they're watching from the Bahamas, and we're certainly from Inagua, Bahamas, actually, and we're certainly grateful that you're tuned in. And we want you to participate in this program. Leave a comment for us on Facebook or call us. This is a call-in show this evening. The number to call is 946-8058, 946-805-8. We want to hear from you. And if you haven't shared this program already, please share this program so that your friends can also view and be a part of this discussion this evening. Okay, Mr. Honorable Thomas.
Yes, sir.
All right, we've been talking about the stimulus package, and you talk about your view of the stimulus package. What is your view of the stimulus package in contrast to, the other view, or how it was handled, or whatever?
Well, to be honest with you, my view, number one, in fairness to the Premier and the government, right? The stimulus was passed in the House of Assembly,
Yes.
right? So the concept of the stimulus was great, immaculate, right? We have never seen anything like that in Turks and Caicos Islands
Right.
before. That sort of level of commitment where you give direct cash injections to Turks and Caicos Islanders or persons in the economy, right? Now, the second part is that once that is approved by the House of Assembly, right, the arms and the legs that carries out that action is the civil service,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Now, the civil service, I have great appreciation for them, right, and the operation for it. But what persons must appreciate, right, unlike the United States, that have a platform that was already in place for social welfare, and to be able to deal with your personal information and being able to have access to your bank account. Turks and Caicos government is in uncharted waters when it comes to that. That platform doesn't exist,
Okay.
right? So the civil service had to build a platform from scratch,
Okay.
right? Who you are, where you work, your status card, all of that information.
Right.
That stuff takes a lot of time, right? And I think we foreseen that it would have taken a bit of time, but I think even in the government's eyesight, they never saw it, taking this amount of time.
Okay.
But in that quest, one, I could tell you where I differ with how the administration of the stimulus package. One, I felt like in terms of persons in the hospitality industry that were non-Turks and Caicos Islanders should have been given vouchers.
Okay.
Why they should have been given vouchers, right, is to ensure that that money was kept inside of the country, right?
But there might be those who might say, well, they shouldn't get anything at all because they were work permit holders,
Right.
contract workers.
Right. Well, and that is an argument to be had. But at the end of the day, when we the pandemic first initially came about, we were looking at a 6-week basis, right? And it was a
Okay.
very fluid situation, right? And the employees that would have been most impacted would have been the hospitality industry.
And you didn't discriminate whether
Right.
they were Turks Islanders or
Right.
whether they were contract workers.
Right, and you didn't discriminate. Now, some person's saying that we should have discriminated, but at the end of the day, and this is from an economic standpoint and a finance standpoint, right? The biggest business that most Turks and Caicos Islanders are in are rental of apartments,
Yes.
right? You would agree with me on that,
Yes.
right? And at the end of the day, who occupies those apartments?
Well, contract workers.
Right? Mainly contract
Mainly,
workers.
mainly.
Right? So the gesture was never done. It was never about supporting just the foreign-based workers.
Okay.
It was looking at the economy from a detailed standpoint and looking at the spin-offs to say that the biggest business that Turks and Caicos Islanders might that's in, right? That they will benefit from persons
Yes.
that are on work permit being able to receive $1,200 from government, right? That they will pay a portion of their rent, number one. Two, that they will create consumption in the economy
Right.
in terms of they'll be able to go out there now, shop at the mom and pop stores, in which the dollar turns over.
Right.
Right? So that was the principle of it, right? Of going around it. Now,
Right.
it's debatable. Persons are saying that perhaps you should have just sent those persons home,
Right.
right? Now, I think legally you have two arguments there, right? The first argument is that some people have a current work permit right? Their employers were still subsidizing them at the point, right? They were not terminated, and they had a legal document to reside inside this country,
Right.
right? So I think that was one part of the argument. Number two, if government was to pack up, cancel all of those persons' work permit and send them home, right? There might have been legally even some level of reimbursement that government would have had to provide to their employers, which probably would have had to go on to them.
Okay.
Because if I am hired or I've given a work permit for a 1-year basis, right? The issue is this: I spent 6 months, right? It was $2,400. I haven't utilized the balance of that $1,200.
Right.
But you send me home, so obviously I have a legal right to the balance of those funds. Now that could have been constructed in many different ways. Persons would say government should have gotten technical, just send you home,
Right.
and let you come back at a later date. That was not the position that was taken. My position was, because of the biggest business that Turks and Caicos Islanders were in, and it was a short period of time, at that point in time, subsidizing the hospitality industry,
Right.
or brand Turks and Caicos, made sense.
Okay, so that was the right thing to do at that particular time.
Yes.
I want to go back to when you say that you would have done it a little bit different.
Right.
And offering vouchers. That means that you're not satisfied that all of the monies that were paid to these people or given to these people as a stimulus package to help them to take care of their bills and buy some groceries were spent in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Yes.
You're not satisfied at what?
I am not satisfied. I'm not satisfied that 100% of it was.
Okay, in your view, what would the vouchers look like?
In my view, the vouchers could have taken the magnitude of using the Turks and Caicos government check, or even some specialized banking paper that was agreed by the Bankers Association, that we would accept this as a form of payment.
Right.
Right? You could have designed that, you could have presented, you could have done it in regards to, you could say, rent vouchers. You could have done it in terms of working along with the major supermarkets, right? Or any supermarket or any retail business that has a license in this country, to say that you will accept this as a form of payment, right? Once that paper is returned to the bank, right, that business would be able to receive credit to their account immediately, right? So that creates a level of consumption in the economy, right? As well as it puts monies in the landlord's hands, where they now could even if you're not able to make a full payment on your mortgage, you're able to make a partial payment, right? But if the way I see it, if you put monies in expatriates' hand, right? At the end of the day, persons come to this country, if we're being honest with ourselves, right?
Yes.
To make a better life.
Right.
To be able to support your family. So they will sacrifice a portion of that money to be able to send home to support their family.
Right.
Right? Morally, I cannot blame them.
Right.
Right? But financially, and the purpose of a stimulus is to allow the economy, right, that money to circulate through the economy, to create a jolt and spending where persons will be able to, that money will be able to turn over 4 or 5 times.
Okay. There are a number of people who are still reporting that they haven't received their stimulus packages for one reason or the other.
Right.
Should people have been disqualified from receiving packages based on outstanding NIB or NHIB?
Well, that is a very difficult question. I'm going to tell you 2 parts, right? And I'll give you my answer to it. One, right? It doesn't matter if your NIB or your NHIP is up to date, right? If you're a Turks and Caicos Islander, right? At this time, you're in unprecedented charted waters.
Right.
Your rent is due. Your family needs food. You need the money.
Right.
Right? Right? But if you look at it from a financial standpoint, government regulation and how things work, right? There must be a standard in place in order for persons to qualify right? Because at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure, whether it's 4 or 5 months from now, when that section of funds is audited, there must be a criteria in place in order for persons to receive those funds. And you will be, pretty much you will be audited based on that. But I do see both sides of the coin, right? Both persons going to say, regardless of my financial situation or whether my bills were up to date, right?
Yeah.
I still need the money. And I'm a Turks and Caicos Islander, government should put me first at this time. Right? So I do see both sides of this coin, and I think the Premier as well as the Cabinet, right?
Yes.
It's been a moving ball, even in regards to the taxi drivers, right? They find themselves in a situation where persons were non-compliant. They gone ahead and changed the regulations to make it feasible, so they are now able to get a stimulus.
Okay.
Right? So I don't think, I think at the end of the day, and the principle that I believe in, that at this given time, every Turks and Caicos Islander deserves a stimulus.
Okay.
Right? Now,
not only those in the hospitality business.
Not only those in the hospitality business, and it's not only those in the Turks and hospitality business that receive stimulus. Right? You had social services, so if you were unemployed, right, and the Premier did an excellent job with designing that program. Now, the logistics of it, some persons been having a little bit of problem with it, right? But in terms of social services, if you were unemployed or gained hardship to COVID-19, you're able to get $200 for 3 months, right? So $200 a month for 3 months in terms of grocery vouchers, right? So that covers persons who are unemployed or find themselves in hardship. It also covered exclusively Turks and Caicos Island businesses, right? So if you own a business that is solely owned, or the majority shares are owned by a Turks and Caicos Islander, you are able to get stimulus. Right? But I think the real problem that we find ourselves here in Turks and Caicos, right, is that there's so many mixed messages, right? There's so many different political agendas. Persons telling you there's nothing there for you. Persons telling you, okay, you need to contact this one. Right? And I think there was a bit of a tug of war going on, right? Politically. Instead of the overall concept being, let's try to find a way to engage all our citizens and point them in the right direction in terms of what areas they would qualify. But there was almost an anti-campaign of saying there's nothing there for you. You shouldn't apply.
So you think that this whole process was contaminated by misinformation?
I think partly, not all of it, because there's parts of it that went very well. But part of the process, right, I think it was contaminated by misinformation, right, on various parts. Right? And I think it could have gone better, but at the end of the day, where we at right now, you need to look, and the Premier has already committed that she intends to give another stimulus. Right? And I am hoping, not only hoping, praying, that the other stimulus that would be given out by the government, that it will be expedited quickly, right? Now that we have the platform in place, because we are now in a better position now where we have your bank accounts, we have your name, right? So it simply is just an upload at the bank now if you intend to give another round of stimulus to Turks and Caicos Islanders.
And you think going forward with this next round of stimulus that the process, the requirements will be as stringent?
No,
or it'll be more lax?
I think it would. I think at this point, I think it would be more lax, because the situation, and I always tell persons in the middle of the pandemic, right? We face a couple of different situations. Number one, Fortis had decided that they would allow you to go 90 days without paying your power bill. The banks, most banks took the situation where they gave a moratorium to say that they wouldn't allow you to pay, right? So if there's ever a time that Turks and Caicos Islanders need the money, will be now, because those institutions will start now to enforce that you need to pay, right? So it's never been a more perfect time for a second stimulus to be issued in this country.
Okay, I just want to share a comment. I see someone leaving a comment here that says the problem is not work permit holders getting a piece of the pie. The problem is that we all know that when it comes to employment in the field, work permit holders have the highest percentage. There should have been a system set up to ensure that the islanders receive the package first. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is that command there is absolutely my position.
Okay.
Right? I think Turks and Caicos Islanders should have been given a priority, right? And I think that is partly the problem, right? To be honest with you, and we're going to talk very, very frank, right?
Okay.
I don't think, in terms of the hospitality industry, why Turks and Caicos Islanders may have a bit of an issue of work permit holders, right, been given a stimulus. I think the real issue amongst workers in the hospitality industry is that Turks and Caicos Islanders wasn't given the priority where they got their monies first, right? Now, that in its sense, in terms of administration, right, could have been twofold, right? You could have, at the end of the day, you might have had Turks and Caicos Islanders, and this is probably the problem you would have faced, who would have put in their information from day one, right? And then you might have had Turks and Caicos Islanders in the same industry who might put the information on day 30. So are you saying to me, do not process any applications until the entire process is done, or to process the applications as they come along?
Okay. This person also suggests that if the government should give another stimulus, it should only be for islanders, Turks Islanders. The borders are open for bosses and managers to send work permit holders. Okay. All right, that's their view, obviously.
Yeah.
We certainly encourage those of you listening to call in and give your comment or to ask your questions. The number to call is 946-8058, 946-8058. We're talking to Honorable Maxovonno Thomas. We're broadcasting live on Platinum Sounds Radio 88.5 FM and SLN Radio 98.3 FM in Great Inagua, Bahamas. Okay, now that the economy is open, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about the economy being open? Obviously, beaches, the economy open, but beaches is not open.
Right.
How important is beaches to the economy of Providencia, Turks and Caicos Islands?
Beaches is extremely important. And I'll tell you why beaches is extremely important is because beaches has almost 60 to 70% of your guests that actually visit the island, as well as your airlift. Beaches, because of the level of guests that they have coming to the island, they dictate a certain extent the amount of airlift, right, that comes to the island at a given time.
Okay, we have a caller.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Hello, caller.
Yes, this is Mac Allen. I'm sitting here and
We can't hear. We can't hear it up a bit.
Talk show, and I want to reach out to Mr. Thomas and yourself, Mr. Seymour, for the way that this discussion.
We can't hear.
The direction
Caller,
the
we can't hear
discussion
you.
is going
Just
to.
give us a minute.
Hold on.
Try to get you sorted out. Yes.
Hello.
Okay, just hold on for us a bit. We're just trying to get you sorted out, caller. Okay, go ahead, caller.
Yes, Mr. Seymour, I want to commend yourself and Mr. Thomas, Honorable Thomas, for the excellent talk show that you guys are.
Okay, hold it. We have a difficulty
on with
of
right
hearing
now.
you in the studio. Okay, while we're waiting on that caller, can you just continue a little bit?
Yeah,
talking
I'll
about
continue
beaches?
on that point, right?
Yes.
And this is why I solely believe, right, in Turks and Caicos Islands, we have a lot of work to do in terms of growing the economy. Because because of the very same point that you raised.
Right.
How is it? You can have one establishment.
One. I'm with you.
Controlling 80% of your airlift.
Right.
Right? Tell me whether, in regards to economic power, lies.
Yeah.
And not only that particular business that you mentioned controls 80% of the airlift, they also, in terms of consumption and import of goods, IGA Beaches imports almost the same amount of groceries as IGA on a monthly basis.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that from a tax standpoint, right, Beaches is a major factor. And I'll take it even a step further. If you look in terms of electrical consumption, even Fortis, Beaches is probably somewhere north of 40%.
Wow.
Of your electrical consumption.
Right.
Right? Where we pay a fuel factor which would apply to them.
Wow.
Right? So we have to, and I always tell Turks and Caicos Islanders, right? We have to grow the economy.
Right.
You need to grow the economy because we can't have.
Okay, we're trying.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we can't have, for instance, a one-race player, right, leading your economy like that, right? Because if globally Beaches' financial situations change, and where does the Turks and Caicos go?
It'll be very impacting.
It'll be very impacting.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, callers, we want you to continue to try to get call in. We have a call online. Okay, the person seemed to have hung up. We want you to keep trying. We have a little bit of difficulty, but we're trying to get you sorted out. And we're talking to Honorable Maxovonno Thomas, and we're talking about the pros and cons of the economy. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you now. Yes.
Perfect.
Honorable Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, you and Mr. Seymour.
Mr. Harvey.
Mr. Harvey, oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, sir.
This is Mr. Garland. I'm listening to you guys' talk show, and I want to commend you guys for an excellent interview that's very educated. It's very, it's a relief show because I think a lot of the people of the Turks and Caicos Island was having the wrong idea about the stimulus package, and I think Honorable Thomas is doing an excellent job and breaking down and presenting to the people, you understand, the way it should have done, the way that it was done. And I want to reach out to the PDM government under the circumstances and seeing that this is the first time that we are going something like that, going to something like this for the wonderful job that they have done regardless of what the people say. Now we can always have some people that are unsatisfied, but I think that the government has done an excellent job, and I think Mr. Thomas is doing an excellent job in representing the government, and you can see that he's not biased because he's not agreeing with everything or every way that things was done. You understand? And for the future, I think this is a learning platform for us where in the future, and if this continue, where we can do things much better. Under these circumstances, you know, we as Turks Islanders should be very grateful.
Yes.
And very thankful. I think we are blessed.
Yes.
And I think the government and Mr. Thomas right now is doing an excellent job in representing the government and representing the people.
Okay.
That's all I want to say.
Thank you for your call. You want to respond?
Thank you very much, caller. And we do live in unprecedented times.
Yes.
And if you be honest, and just take a look at where Turks and Caicos is at, right? Look at Turks and Caicos in comparison to the Bahamas, Jamaica, the wider Caribbean,
Yes.
who are not able to offer their citizens just about literally anything.
Yes, we're broadcasting live in Inagua, Bahamas. It'll be nice to get some comments coming from the Bahamas to know what's
Right?
going on
At
there.
the end of the day,
Yes.
we were in a financial position
Yes.
in this country because of the leadership of the current premier. And I have to give people their roses, if you want to be honest, right? Because at the end of the day, I can tell you, me being a financier and other financiers who are even understand the financial situation of the government, right? Who said that that we felt like at a year and a half ago that she should have spent more money in capital expenditure.
Right.
If the premier would have taken that position at that time,
Right.
right, we wouldn't be in any position to offer any sort of help
Right.
to our citizens. We're now in the hurricane season, and this is critical for
It
Turks,
is.
for
Really.
Turks and Caicos Islanders to know, right? Because we're now in the hurricane season. God forsakes another hurricane dawns upon Turks and Caicos, right? There the government goes again. Needs to find money to give this economy a jolt,
Right.
right? So you need to realize that there's various situations that we deal with and manage in this country, right? It's just not the pandemic. It's the hurricane season,
Yes.
right? It's finding ways to create a balance between improving your infrastructure, dealing with the pandemic,
Right.
and even hedging your bet that if we have a hurricane, government has money set aside
Right.
to be able to help its citizens, right?
Right.
So the management, in that sense, in regards to the pandemic, and the foresight by the leadership under the Honorable Premier has been great, in my eyesight.
Right. And so you really commend her.
No, I commend her. I commend her wholeheartedly because at the end of the day, governance is about priority.
Right.
Right? I don't know if you recall back in 2012 to 2016, right, when they said that we face challenging times, right? We face challenging times. They wasn't able to send kids to school like they would like in terms of scholarships.
We have another call.
Okay.
We have
Yes,
another
sir.
call.
This is Mr. Garland again. There's just one more thing I forget to mention.
Okay.
The vultures that's coming from welfare, it's $200 and it's given and it's made out to different supermarkets. Now I think that should be changed for the simple reason they should be made like something like food stamps, like 4 checks of $50, and you can go to any food store that you want to spend the money. Or you can spend $50 today and you can spend $50 next week, but you don't necessarily have to walk in the store and spend the whole $200. Because once you get that $200, once you walk in the store, they're telling you, you understand me, there's no credit for you to come back.
Right.
Okay.
It should be $50 coupons where you can go and IGA, Sunny Food, or Smart, or any local grandma and grandpa store to spend your money. Instead of having being forced to spend your money in one place, because it's not every store that has everything that you need or you want. I think that's very, very critical in these times. That should be looking to immediately.
Okay, caller, thank you very much. You have any views concerning what he's talking about?
Yeah, well, that's a very practical example, but at the given time, I think it was, very challenging to produce that amount of vouchers. And I think the ministry, at that point in time, the policy was approved, but they took that position because at the end of the day, and I agree with the caller on this, right? Because it's not just the major grocery stores. It should have been extended more to all of the retail stores or grocery stores, even the little mom and pops, where they could have accepted the vouchers, right?
That's another, we don't have the time to begin to talk about that, because I'm sure people have their views concerning it, where certain major stores were seemingly benefiting over local businesses, but we'll have to talk about that another time. We're definitely out of time today, and we're on the last 5 minutes. We have, if we want you to call in, we want to give you an opportunity to call in and ask a question or to make a comment. The number to call is 8058. I also want to share a stimulus package coming from Platinum Sounds Radio, and it's an invitation for you to advertise on Platinum Sounds Radio. We're giving a stimulus offer of 50% off your advertisement. Okay, the number to call is 946-242-9897. You can even sponsor the Empowerment Hour, and you can have your advertisement being played on Platinum Sounds Radio, and it will certainly do a whole lot as far as promoting your business is concerned. And we're talking to Honorable Maxovonno Thomas. Very interesting conversation, very informative.
Yeah.
And we were talking about beaches, the impact that beaches not opening will have on the economy as we go forward. And they've given a date that they're going to open on October 14th. Okay, obviously this is like the slow season anyway in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Right.
All right. But what are your thoughts as we continue to go forward and as we continue to build? Are you optimistic that the economy will grow, that the tourists will come?
Yeah,
even amid COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic because the level of where is our brand, the Turks and Caicos product, right?
Yes.
We cater to very high-end guests.
Yes.
Right? And we also have a product on island, which is the villa rentals, which are very high-end, right? And most persons would appreciate, right? The villa rentals. And on day one, we had about 18 private jets flew in here. Most of those guests more than likely would have gone to private villas, probably paying, between $5,000 or $10,000 a night. See, because of our niche in the market, right?
Right.
We find ourselves where our accommodation or head tax, right, is maximized by those customers, right? And they're very little to no impact because you could put restrictions on them to say, well, you have to stay at your private villa. There's a family, coming, let's say, for example, from New York,
right,
that goes to a private villa that's probably going to use catering services or any other services that's going to have everything brought into the villa. So they probably wouldn't even interact with the general public as much.
Okay.
Right? And this kind of gives us a bit of a warm-up before beaches open when we face mass tourism.
Right.
Because mass tourism is certainly different from that product that we're offering right now. Right now, once beaches open, you can envision 200 to 300 people swimming in the same swimming pool.
Right.
Right? And then you find yourself in a situation where as much as adults, because beaches caters to adults as well as children, right? You might find yourself in a situation where we as adults are willing to follow the protocol in terms of coronavirus.
But children.
But children is very much different, right? They're going to hug, they're going to kiss, they're going to love one another, you know? It's going to be a very difficult situation from that standpoint.
Right.
Right? So I think going forward is not going to be as simplistic as we see it in regards to when we have that mass tourism product returns in terms of beaches opening, as well as the return of the cruise ship industry.
Right.
Right.
We have our neighbors to the north, the Bahamas.
Yep.
We have parts of the Bahamas going back on lockdown. You think us in the Turks and Caicos Islands should be concerned that somewhere in the near future we could find ourselves locking back down again?
There's always a possibility, but we have taken the necessary steps that the Bahamas didn't take in their initial process of opening to prevent that level of mass outbreak as well as the demand on our hospital system. Through the medical insurance now, right? If you get sick, we fly you out. We have about 20 to 30 ventilators and a new section of the hospital, which this government has renovated and put in place in record time, right? That if persons get sick, right now our capacity is very low in regards to the hospital, right? So we still have probably 20 or more available ventilators and whatever else is needed to deal with that. Most persons find themselves in a system where they're asymptomatic, right? So right now, Turks and Caicos government still has the hospital capacity. We also have proper protocols in place, better than any other Caribbean country.
Right.
Right? right? And it's very strict, and you find some persons think that we should even relax on some of those protocols because the wider population is finding it very difficult to be able to get all of that stuff in place.
Okay.
So we have the best protocols, right? We have the capacity.
Like, what are Turks and Caicos Islands doing differently? Because, you know, as you look at the reports coming from around the world, a number of people are dying from COVID-19. But here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, even though our numbers are going up, we don't see a whole lot of people, you know, dying from it. Is there something different? Is there something that we're doing to cause that to happen? Or is it just that it's not affecting people the way it used to?
Well, that's the thing. You know, you have a lot of persons that, you know, find themselves in an asymptomatic position, right?
Okay.
And that's been the case around the world.
Right.
If you look at the global percentages, right, you would realize as much as, you know, you're saying that there's been, you know, 400,000 or 500,000 deaths, right? If you look at the amount of people that have been impacted by coronavirus and the amount of people die, you realize that the ratio is still very low, right? And also, too, you know, and I don't want to get into all of the medical research and all the data
okay,
in relation to that, right?
So we can't speak to that.
We can't speak to all of that. But I do believe that our population, we find ourselves in a situation where, and I always encourage persons that, you know, we tend to take more of our bush medication, right? We tend to have stronger immune systems because of our current lifestyle. We eat the best seafood, we take our bush medicine, everything is pretty generic, right? So you might find, because it's a disease that impacts the immune system, you know, a whole lot. So, you know, I am hoping that that is the case, that Turks and Caicos Islanders find themselves in a position where we have a resilient immune system and we are able to fight it off if we catch the coronavirus. But I always tell persons, even though the economy is open, and I want to make this point, if you feel that it's in your best interest to stay home, and you can afford to stay home and keep your family locked in, right, then do that. You can still self-quarantine, right? There's no need, because the economy open, there's a need for you to come out. But if you find yourself in a situation where you need to go out to provide for your family and support your family, then follow the protocol to the T, right? Put the best practices in place. You go to work, you limit your runs, and you go back home, and you just practice the best practices going forward to keep your family safe.
And I agree with you. I think all of us have to make this decision for ourselves.
Right.
Because even though the church is open and I'm a pastor, you know, I'm telling people also that, you know, not because we have unlimited numbers, mean that you should come. If you feel uncomfortable about coming to large gatherings, then you should not come to church. Even with the protocols in place, you still put yourself at risk. And so those people who have underlying health conditions and who are at greater risk, you know, I'd advise them to still be very, very careful during this particular time. And all of us should be, because we're all connected to someone that is at risk some way, somehow. We're talking to Honorable Maxovonno Thomas. We have a few more minutes on the program. We've been extended just for a few more minutes to give our callers some time to call in. But as we wind down now, our time has passed, but we still have a few more minutes now. What are some of the needs, the immediate needs you see in the community as it relates to what, you know, people are facing a difficult time? What are the immediate needs, and how can they access help?
Well, the immediate needs, as one, I could tell you, and this is something I'm practicing myself, right? In a time like this, in the midst of a pandemic, right, we all need to be our brother's keeper.
Yes.
Right? You know, we have 2,400 civil servants strong, working, full paycheck. We need to be our brother's keeper.
Right.
Businesses that were able to operate throughout the pandemic because of the essential services need, and they have, some have, provided assistance.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think I should drop this in, because there are many people who feel like the efforts of the government is really because, you know, everyone knows that elections are around the corner. Is what the government doing as far as paying civil servants, is it sustainable, or should people worry that, you know, if the economy don't really pick up, that things will change in a few months?
It's very sustainable, and at the end of the day, right, the government, and I'm going to take it back a bit, right? If you're running in a business, right, your first priority to your business is your employees. At the end of the day, make sure that their well-care and well-being is okay.
Right.
Now, so in regards to the civil service, it is the right thing to do. By paying the civil service their full pay at this time, even is a form of stimulus, because those persons are now able to help other people.
Right.
Right? And persons will never look at it like that, but that's it. And government has an obligation to its employees, right? When you're going to talk about offering stimulus, right? A line item that is not currently in the budget, right? To set aside a set of funds to be able to help all Turks and Caicos Islanders or residents alike, right? You must also take care of your employees as well.
Right. So if I have a government job,
right,
I can rest. I can feel confident that at least for the rest of this year, I'll be getting paid, and I still have a job.
If I was a Baton man, I am 100% sure that would be the case. And I think also too, is because of the management of the current premier.
Okay.
That I don't think that is in jeopardy.
Okay. I'll allow you to finish your thought on those people and how they can access help.
Right. Now, how you could possibly access help also, you know, I told, you know, persons is that, one, we need to work together. That was a point that I made earlier.
Yes.
Also, as corporate citizens, right, as businessmen, part of the community who run small businesses, right, we need, and this is where it comes in, right, we need to realize the only viability of our business is the consumers.
Right.
So at this time, if you allow the consumers to experience extreme hardship,
right,
or fall down by the wayside, right, there's no future in our business.
Right.
Right? And that's why I think we all need to play our part. And that's why the story that is not being told throughout this pandemic, right? Everybody is looking to TCIG. The hotels,
right,
the grocery stores, the gas stations, everybody is looking to Turks and Caicos government for a stimulus, right? Right? The way I see it is that is Turks and Caicos Islands government the only vested party in the country, right? We all have vested interests.
Right.
We all should help. If you look at Jamaica, Jamaica private sector donated 28 million towards the pandemic. Right? While some Turks and Caicos Islanders businesses have made the sacrifice, there need to be done. The hotels have benefited from tens of millions of dollars in this country over the last 10 years, right? Over the last 10 years. But still, right? Everybody, Turks and Caicos government has paid their employees.
Yes.
Turks and Caicos government has I think about $4.2 million in taxes to help subsidize their business. What more can Turks and Caicos government do other than take over their hotels and run their businesses? Because that looks like the path that we're heading, right? In terms of, because if we have to pay that level of cost to run your business, then Turks and Caicos government might as well own some of those products at the end of the day, because we're subsidizing your businesses, and in fairness, right? I have no problem with that, right? But at the end of the day,
yes,
a lot of those businesses who would have had profits at the end of the year, right, did not reinvest their profits here in this country, right? They did not hold it and retain earnings to be able to take care or meet their business needs at this point in time. And we need to be honest about it, right? The government cannot, no government, not even the United States government, would be able to finance an entire pandemic themselves. It has to be a collaboration of private and public, and as citizens, in order to protect this country, we all need to do our part.
Okay. All right, as we wind down to a close, the number to call is 946-8058, 946-8058. We're going to give you one more minute to call if you want to be a part of this program this evening. I just want to share a few comments, or maybe just a comment from Facebook. We have one of our Facebook followers commenting, I don't think every Turks and Caicos Islander should have to receive the stimulus. Some persons received their full salary straight through lockdown. the stimulus should be given to those persons who lost wages and salaries. Okay, we're having a call come through. Okay, caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, good
Okay, you're on air on the Empowerment Hour. Our guest this evening is Honorable Maxovonno Thomas. You have a comment or a question?
Yes. First, let me say good afternoon to Honorable Thomas and
Yes.
yourself, Bishop Harvey. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Just a couple of questions. Honorable Thomas mentioned a little about a second round of stimulus, possibly. I would like for him to possibly go into a little detail from his perspective as to what that should look like in terms of amounts, who are the persons that should be impacted, and the second part of my questions is we're now moving into, or we're getting closer to the school year. What are some of his thoughts on the steps parents should be taking and some of the things he thinks, or some of the steps he thinks the government should be taking as it relates to getting back into the classroom?
Okay, very good questions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, you want to answer?
Yeah, I'll answer that. In regards to the stimulus, the first thing is that the Premier is putting together, and our Cabinet is putting together a second stimulus, right? The terms of that stimulus would have to be dealt with by one of those Cabinet members, right? So how it would look like, the fine tunes of it, I am not privy to that information as yet. So I can't tell you exactly. All I know is that the intent of the second stimulus is to be given to Turks and Caicos Islanders, right? So I can give that assurance. Number two, in regards to the situation with the school, where, and this is solely my belief, right? September coming, right? Because of the situation with young kids, and parents might feel a little funny by this because, you know, children's been home for a very long time.
Right.
I think in the absence of some viable, right, vaccine, that I am very reluctant to agree for schools to resume normal operation in September.
Okay.
And I say that because as an adult, sometimes you find it hard to follow the protocol.
Right.
Right? And then we send our children to school, and if we want to be real about it, right? Some people have their grandparents who are most at risk to coronavirus.
Right. That's true.
Watching their young children.
Yes.
Right? Then you have babysitters or whatever it is. You know, if a child contracts coronavirus, there's a high probability that the rate that it will be spread will be much greater than those amongst adults.
Right.
Right? So my position is...
And that is your personal position?
That's my
Obviously,
personal position.
You're not the Minister
No, the Minister of Education, the Premier,
So,
the Cabinet, you know, we will debate that point
This is
whenever that
Honorable
reaches. That is...
Maxovonno's of you.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? And I think we should continue with the online classes. Right? You know, I know there's a cost to that because parents can have to return to work.
Right.
And they're going to have to find extra home care. But that's where the mechanism of health needs to prevail in the sense of the argument.
It's true, and I think that's a good place for us to close there because, you know, even though the economy is open and we've taken the limit off how many people could gather, I want you to just speak to how important it is for us at this time to still be responsible. You said it before, but there are a number of people having parties. Obviously, the parties are not illegal as long as there's social distancing. But I've observed that, you know, once people start together, they find excuses to hug or to touch. Because it feels weird not to.
Yeah.
And so you're there trying your best, you're wearing your mask, but you still find yourself doing something to break the protocol, hugging somebody, touching somebody. You know, you see somebody that you really know and love, and you know, you say, anyway, I hit that when they say, well, come here, let me give you a hug. You know,
we're touchy-feely people.
Yeah, so I want you to, you know, really give us encouragement that we should still be responsible.
Yeah. Well, the best encouragement I can give is that, you know, you need to wear your mask, right? Practice social distancing, as well as you have to realize, right, that the life you may save may be your very own.
Your very own.
Right? You have to protect your family, those who are most vulnerable, persons who can afford at this given time to stay home and not return back to work, right? And quarantine, I suggest wholeheartedly that you do that. Persons who fall on the other side of the coin, who has to return back to work to be able to support their family. In a time like this, I suggest you follow the protocols that have been put in place by this government to the T.
Okay.
That's the only way to ensure that you have maximized your position of not getting impacted by the coronavirus. So follow the protocols. If you could stay home, please stay home.
We have people agreeing with you that schools should remain closed. At least this person commenting by saying it should be closed until January. Even though we can gather, if you see a gathering where people are breaking protocol, you go to a party and people are gathering like COVID-19 don't exist, is that illegal?
Well,
can you call the police for that group?
Well, you can
Still?
because it's been mandated that it speaks specifically to the number of people, and it speaks specifically to the social distancing rules, right? Anything, and I think there's just been recently an enforcement team put in place to be able to ensure that once there's any social gatherings, that persons actually follow the rules. And then if you go to an establishment, a restaurant, and you find that they encourage people partying or whatever it is, I think the rules are on the book, it's in play, we need to hold persons responsible.
Right.
If you break protocol or you allow protocol to be frequently broken at your establishment, then your establishment should be closed.
Right.
That's the only way that we're going to ensure that the rules are followed, right?
And the government is serious about COVID-19?
The government is...
And to the place where you think that will be enforced?
Yes. The government is dead serious about COVID-19, and you could see it over the period of time. And I think you even had persons in the hospitality sector who own private villas who wanted to open much sooner, right? The government took a firm position that your health comes first, right? We got to a position now where we decided we was going to open. We put all the proper procedures in place. The airport is ready. The social distancing rules exist there. The website, in terms of it's a portal that was put in place for you to send your information to government to ensure that everything is in place. All of that stuff is in place. Now, it's enforcement that needs to be done, right? We need to make sure that there's no exceptions in the rule for anyone, right? We need to ensure that that standard is maintained. Once the standard is maintained and protocol is followed, I think we coming out of the pandemic as Turks and Caicos Islanders will be well on our way.
Okay.
We will be much better off than our counterparts in the region.
Wow. Okay, great. And we've certainly had a certain level of success so far in Turks and Caicos Islands. And it's my prayer, really, that as we go forward, and a lot of it is faith, and I'm a man of faith, and I'm praying that all goes well for us in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to be with me this evening, and I certainly wish you all of the best in your going forward, your ambitions, and all of the things that you want to accomplish. Obviously, you have a whole lot to give still to the Turks and Caicos Islands, a great contribution to make even as a young man. And I certainly encourage you to reach for the stars.
Yes, sir.
Right, and everything that you've accomplished already, I believe that there's still a whole lot more that you have to give. And so I'm grateful that you've taken the time to be with us this evening. Do you have any last words you want to share with us before we go this evening?
Well, my final words would be, thank you, for having me here. It's been great to sit down and have a, conversation with you in terms of, COVID-19 and where we're heading and in terms of the economy. Also, I'd like to say, I hope that we're able to have this conversation in more detail. Right? That we can get together again, because there's a multitude of issues that we face in this country. that we ought to talk about financially as
Yes.
well as in regards to health and where we're going, right? And I would like to do that, and I'd like to thank the radio station, which is belong our own,
Right.
right? To be able to provide me,
yes.
you know, with this opportunity, you know, and
We often say every Saturday, it's the fastest growing radio station in Providencia. It's Turks and Caicos Islands.
yeah, it's owned by Turks and Caicos Islands.
Radio
I gotta
owned
show
by
that.
Turks and
I
Caicos
gotta
Islands.
show that disclaimer in place.
Very
so, you know,
ambitious,
So
owners,
that-
and very have great vision as to where they want to go.
And my final remarks is, you know,
Yes.
it was my pleasure. You know, I benefited a lot from this country. You know, I was able, you know, to go on a full ride scholarship from this country.
Yes.
I was able to serve as an appointed member as a part of this country. My parents has worked for the civil service. Actually, my dad worked for the civil service for about 32 years, right? So, you know, it's a very privilege to be able to serve in this capacity. And hopefully, my skill set that I believe at this given time, that is very crucial to move the Turks and Caicos forward, that the people of the Turks and Caicos Islands will consider me and put me in a position to be able to help them at a time like this.
Right. And I would certainly love to have you back, especially to share your vision, you know, as it relates to going forward in the Turks and Caicos Islands, and you occupying one of those seats.
Yes, sir.
Not only as an appointed member,
No.
but as one who had been voted in, and even a minister in government.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, it's so good to have you. Thank you, all of you who have been listening on 88.5 Platinum Sounds Radio and SLN Radio 98.3 FM in Great Inagua, Bahamas. You want to say something to those folk in Bahamas before we close out?
What I'd like to say to folks in Bahamas,
Inagua, yeah.
in Inagua,
Yes.
well, it's part of the Bahamas, but things are better in the Bahamas, but it's best in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Have a great evening.
I'm sure with that they're probably not going to broadcast on next week, because we love our in the Bahamas.
It's better in the Bahamas, but best in Turks and Caicos.
Yes, we're certainly grateful
Yes.
to have that avenue to really broadcast in the Bahamas, and there's so much more coming on stream. We're soon going to be broadcasting to parts of the United States.
Awesome.
Platinum Sounds Radio and the Empowerment Hour are about to do great things, and we're grateful that you took the time to be our guest, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future and to have you to come and to share this great vision.
Thank you so much, sir.
Going forward.
Anytime.
All right.
Yes,
God
sir.
bless you.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for joining us on the Empowerment Hour. We invite you on next week to join us at 6 o'clock on Saturday evening for another Empowerment Hour. God bless.
No, will I forsake you?